Hey everybody, BK Adams here. Today I'm going to be randomly rolling a Mighty Protector's villain. And the reason I'm doing a villain is I need somebody to fight my randomly created hero that I made a week or so ago. So first off, I want to talk about power level. Mighty Protectors has essentially three power levels starting off. There's a low, medium, or rather low, standard, or high power level, and it talks about it in this section. It talks about you get different points depending on what those are, and here it is in this section under ability caps. It talks about power level, core ability character points, basic characteristic points, and total character points, total CPs. Okay, so a low Mighty Protectors campaign has a total of 100 character points. A standard power level character is going to have 150 CPs, and a high power level is 200 total, and that's starting off. So going to our sheet down here on the base, we will put 150 because we're making a standard power level character. Okay, I've already put in the player, which is a villain NPC. Villains are evil, so I've got those two already slotted out. And next up, so the first thing we're randomly rolling for is our birthplace. So let's go ahead and randomly roll that. And it's a D100, and I rolled a 63, so that means they're local. The character is a native of the locale where they're first encountered. Okay, and we'll just put native. Let's roll D100 and see what we get for species. I rolled a 2. That is human. Okay, so we will we'll put human in the species line on the character sheet. Next up, we've got culture, which, because we didn't roll anything strange, is just going to default to modern. Okay. And next up is gender, where we have 4 separate sub-roles: gender identity, gender expression, biological sex, sexual attraction. Each of those is a D100 roll. Let's go ahead and reset the random roller. Our first roll for gender is a 72. That is a man. Our next roll is 76. That is the gender expression is the same as the gender identity. The next roll is a 86. That means this person is cisgender. And lastly, 26 on sexual attraction. That is straight. So we've got a straight cisgender man. Okay. Next, we've got basic characteristics, and here's our chart where we roll that. For a standard campaign, we've got the numbers are already predetermined. What you're rolling for is what stat they get assigned to. So we need to roll a D10, and our first roll D10 number is a 6. Looking at the chart, that is agility. So our first number is an 18, and it's agility. Okay, so 18 agility. Our next D10 number is a 3. That is endurance. So the second number is a 16. That goes on endurance. Third roll is a 2. That is strength. Well, I can't highlight it, but there we go, strength. And the third number is a 14. So we'll put that down. And our next roll is a 10, which is cool. And that's going to be a 12. So we have a 12 on cool, and then the last number is intelligence for 10. Okay, so that actually worked out pretty well. Next up, we've got weight, and mass. So it says adult male characters roll 5 dice 6, and then it also says for heroically large characters add 1 or 2 dice. So this is a villain, so sure, let's add a couple dice. Let's make it 7 dice 6. 7 dice 6 gives us 20, and you multiply that by 10, and that gives you the weight in pounds. So our villain is 200 pounds. Okay. Next up, we have background. So there's a table with all these backgrounds on it, and you're supposed to roll 3 times on that chart and pick 2 that you want to keep. So we'll do that. Let's reset the roller. Our first D100 roll is a 77. Looking at the chart, that is labor manufacturing. Okay. Next roll is a 68. That is religion mysticism. And our third roll is a 21, commercial art. Okay. So some sort of artist, possibly. Labor, religion. Well, I'm not really sure. Maybe we'll hold off on picking this when we know a little bit more. So for now, I'll just put down commercial art, religion, mysticism, and labor manufacturing. Alright, we'll pick 2 of those 3 in a minute. We'll come back to that. Next up is motivation, and there's 2 charts. There's one for superheroes and there's one for villains, supervillains. And it says roll twice on the table, selecting whichever motivation fits best. So it's D100 again. We get a 44 on our first roll, which is mercenary. Mercenary servitor. The villain has no particular motivation of their own, but they're willing to perform criminal acts for money, and they've got a reputation for being good at what they do, leading other criminals to employ them. Okay, that's cool. Our next roll is a 5. That is insanity. The villain is insane, and then it says roll again, twisting the result to make it a very extreme and deeply irrational. Okay, so 97. That is opportunist. So an insane opportunist or a mercenary servitor. Let's go with mercenary. Mercenary servitor. Kind of like that. Alright, for wealth, wealth is not randomly rolled. Luck is not randomly rolled. You get a D4 of wealth and a 10 or less in luck. Now those can change. You can randomly roll abilities which increase your wealth or increase your luck, but we haven't gotten to that part yet. So for now we'll put D4 wealth and 10 or less luck. Okay, now origin type. Again, it's D100. There's a chart and it will tell us. So we have our origin type, and we need to roll D100 and I roll 34. That is science accident. Okay, so under origin type, we will put science accident. There it is. That's the top part of the sheet. And we still haven't done our background, but we can still come back to that. Pick 2 of those that seem to make the most sense. So next up, we need to roll our abilities and weaknesses. So we need to randomly select 2 offensive, 2 defensive, and 2 miscellaneous abilities by rolling twice on each of the following ability tables. So first up, we have offensive abilities. Again, it's D100. We will roll twice on each table. And our first roll, let's reset the roller. Our first roll is a 48. Looking at offensive abilities, that is magnetism. Okay. Magnetism. Alright, that's our first roll. Our second roll is a 51. That is mind control. Okay. Mind control. Alright. Now we need to roll on the defensive chart. And our first roll is a 58. that is invisibility. Okay, that's interesting. And our next roll is a 67. That is invulnerability. Okay. And now we need to roll on the miscellaneous chart for abilities. And we'll reset the roller. Our first roll is an 11. That is companion. Okay. And our second roll is a 100. That is willpower. Okay. So I actually got some similarities to the hero I rolled. Alright, now we need to roll weaknesses. 2 of them. D100 again. And the first one's a 58. That is reduced agility. And the second one is 89, which is uneducated. Okay. So on weaknesses, we've got reduced agility and uneducated. Well, let's see what it says. Well, I guess technically we're supposed to do a character concept and final touches. So I'll just read what it says. It says, at this point you've been rolling randomly. You're finding yourself confronted with a list of traits which at first glance may not seem to make a whole lot of sense together. Now it's time to put together a superheroic or villainous theme from all of these disparate pieces. And then on character concept, it says look for a pattern, even the suggestion of a pattern in all of that random noise. And it gives an example. And then here it says pick 4 core abilities from the randomly generated set of 6. These should be abilities that seem to fit together under a single theme. So I've thought about it, and I think I'm going to make this guy, I'm going to go with commercial art and labor manufacturing. He was a photographer at a newspaper that shut down. He got laid off and he had to find work, so he became a janitor at some company. We'll call it SciTech, S-Y, SciTech. You know, it's some high-tech business that, you know, is into all sorts of new technology and this. And so I thought about it a little bit. So what happened is he was at the building late night, you know, mopping floors, cleaning bathrooms, what have you. And one of the experiments at SciTech was into magnetism. And something went wrong. It all exploded, and he was there, and he got caught in that, and that's how he got his powers. That's the science accident origin type. So I'm supposed to pick 4 out of these 6 abilities and call them core abilities. And so I'm going to go with magnetism, mind control, invulnerability, and willpower. So those are the 4 that I'm picking. And if we go back to the rules, this is under ability CPs is where it talks about how many points. So I'd already said this was a standard power level. And if you look at core ability CPs, you get 20. So I picked these 4. Each of them get 20 points. Okay. And now, under weaknesses, it says examine the first weakness, which was a uneducated. And sure, he could be uneducated. He was a photographer. Don't necessarily have to be educated for that. So we'll put 5 points into that. And then if you read it, it says... so if you choose to keep the weakness, it says you may then assign those CPs to one of the character's 2 non-core abilities or distribute them among their other core abilities and basic characteristics, or you can just discard it. So we're keeping it. Let's look at our stats. our stats actually are pretty good for, you know, a quote-unquote normal human. They're much higher than a normal human. Normal human, average human is just 10, and all of our stats except for intelligence are above 10. So those are pretty good. Let's see. I've actually decided I don't want to keep either of these weaknesses. I'm just going to discard both of them. So now he's got his 20 points in magnetism, 20 points in mind control, 20 points in invulnerability, 20 points in willpower. And when you go to each of those abilities, the points give you, well, let's just go to magnetism real quick. So here's magnetism, and there's two abilities. There's A, which is magnetic manipulation. Basically, you can exert magnetic strength over metal, all right, like Magneto. And then there's B, which is magnetic field, which is essentially a force field. I like both of those actually. What you can do, let's see, let's give him 20 points of magnetic manipulation. And the range is equal to the character's strength. So we've got our damage down, the range is his strength, which is 14. That's 14 inches. The power cost is 1. Okay. And let's see, we got to move mind control down. And we also wanted B, magnetic field, which is really force field. So this is where you can edit your character, which is one of the cool things about Mighty Protectors. So let's put 10 points in the magnetic field, and let's take 10 points out of willpower. So, and let's just go ahead and ditch invisibility in companion, make the sheet look a little better. We don't really need the C's anymore. Let's get rid of those. So if we look at force field, let's go to our table of contents. We'll look at force field. It has two sections. It has personal force field A and force bolt B, but we want the personal force field, and we want 10 points on it, and that is right here on the chart. It's going to give 4 protection on all the major damage types. So, and let's see, the total is 16. So 16 total protection. That is 10, and the power cost to turn it on. Let's see how to say this. PR equals 16 to activate or renew. Okay. Right. So, and then down on our sheet, we will say magnetic field. Okay, so we've got our first superpower statted out. It's magnetism. It does 2d10 damage. We've also got magnetic field, which is a force field, and I've written it down. It gives us 4 protection to pretty much everything but psychic damage. And next up we have mind control. So we'll look that up real quick. And at 20 points, that is a mind control save modifier of -6. Okay, so we'll go ahead and write that down. Okay, so I've written it down. It's mind control. It has a intelligence plus cool range and a power cost of 8. And let's go ahead and fill these attacks in. So there's the punch, there's the the magnetism, and there's mind control. Now, magnetism can do 2d10 damage. It's kinetic, and it can be there can be knockback with it. Punching has knockback. Now, mind control, that is psychic damage. It does not do knockback, and it is a -6 save. Okay, but it's also based on the character's intelligence. So we've got mind control down. Next up we have invulnerability. Let's go to table of contents, look that up. I think it makes sense. So let's look at invulnerability. It says this continual ability makes the character nearly immune to the effects of one or more damage types, subtypes, or specific types, taking only 1/4 damage rounded down from attacks of those types. Okay, so if we look at our character sheet, there's basically 6 damage types. There's kinetic, just things like punching or bullets. There's energy, which is, fire. There's bio, which is short for biochemical. Things like poisons or acids. There's entropy, which is generally cold, but it could also be something like death touch or paralysis. There's psychic, that's mind control, motion control, things like that. And then there's other, which is a catch-all for anything that doesn't fit in those first 5 categories. So I think I want our villain to be invulnerable to energy. I've gone ahead and typed it in, so he will take 1/4 damage from energy attacks, and I'll write that down under protection. Well, for some reason it's not working. 1/4. There we go. Alright, and lastly we have willpower. Let's go ahead and look that up real quick. Now we lowered it from 20 points to 10 points so we could have our magnetic force field. So willpower has a bunch of sub-powers, or sub-abilities rather. There's fortitude, there's pain resistance, there's self-control, and total pain resistance. And we only have 10 points, but I think I'm going to go with B, pain resistance. The character isn't knocked out by losing more than 1/2 of their remaining hits to an attack. They're only knocked out when their hits drop to 0. That's going to make this guy much tougher. So let's go ahead and write that in. So our character is basically done. I've come to a random name generator at fakenamegenerator.com, and I'm going to randomly generate a name, and I get Dewey V. Hansen. Okay, so that is our villain's name, Dewey V. Hansen. Okay, so the character is pretty much done. The one thing I didn't do was I did not randomly roll his age, so I'm going to do that real quick. If I can find it. Let's see, age. Here we go. So we'll just do the standard 2d10 plus 10. He is experienced, so we may add some more to this. But so we get 21 age, which is I think too young. So let's add 20 to that, make him 41. So he was a photographer for a long time, lost his job at the newspaper, began working as a janitor at a high-tech company. One of their experiments blew up, bathing him in magnetic fields or whatnot. That's how he got his powers. Then he decided, trying to be a upright citizen wasn't working out too great. He was very bitter about what had happened to him, so he turns to crime. He becomes a mercenary, basically just selling out his newfound abilities to the highest bidder you know, essentially becomes a mercenary for hire. And this is our villain. I haven't come up with a name for him yet, but I will do that. I will put a link to this sheet so it's available to look at. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.